You're right on. I mean, everything you're saying is exactly what I've been preaching for a very, very long time to all of, I mean, I run a financial services organization. We have 1,500 licensed agents, 50 locations, and we, you know, it's like, I just don't get it. I mean, it's so easy to me these days. It's so easy to meet new people. And this is what's cool about today's world, is that when I meet somebody, it's usually because they think like me. Because the people that don't think like me, they've already unfollowed me. You know what I mean? They've already went right past that ad. And by the way, they probably never even saw my ad, the people that don't like me, because the ads are, you know, somewhat targeted. I know it's not. Maybe you could kind of explain what's happening in the world of marketing and ads and why you can't guarantee, because probably 3-4 years ago, you could more or less guarantee things that you can't guarantee. But the point I'm trying to make is that, man, I mean, how nice is it that, you know, there's built-in algorithms in social media that say, look, you don't like this person, you can block them. You can just unfollow them and you'll never get stuff from that person again. Matter of fact, I've actually clicked on ads and it'll say, don't ever show me that ad again, because I've already seen it, or I already bought the product already, or whatever. And so how awesome is that?
Yeah. I mean, and look, it's that education as well, you know, and I think that's where, if you're a marketing company, because we preach, obviously content is everything. I'm a big fan of video, you know, face-to-face is always going to win as long as it's just humans around. Like we're going to naturally just get bought in and trust 10 times easier if we're sitting face-to-face somebody. However, video is right behind that. You know, and podcast is really jumping up the audio side of that as well. But video allows people, there's so many people out there that, and I'm sure you've got this with your base, people that feel like they know you, people that would send you thousands or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands or $1 million without having met you in person, because they have seen you on video so much, because that builds that trust and that relationship. And then it just becomes about continuing to stay in front of them. And that's whenever you start getting into some of the other things that we talk about around, like the fame formula and things of that nature. But, you know, it's all about staying in front and staying top of mind. And yes, you need to be prepared that if somebody comments something or any, like, that's normal, and just block and move on. And you know, you don't have to deal with it again. And you're also telling the algorithm at that point, you know, people that kind of look like this from a habit, interest, all that, you probably don't want to send it to them, because it's not going to, they're not going to be happy. At the end of the day, the algorithms just want people to stay on their platform as long as possible. So if they pick up that certain demographics aren't necessarily liking what they're seeing, they're going to stop showing it to that specific segment. Sometimes it doesn't happen immediately, but it does. That's what it picks up on. And so the more consistent, the longer you do it, the smarter it gets. And, you know, and that's important to know. But yeah, you're spot on.
Tell me about kind of, there has been changes though, and maybe how are you guys dealing with those changes? Because I've even known, I've even been dealing with this because I've worked with several marketers. In 2020, just by the way, I worked with a marketer and it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. I sat in my dining room and I had more success than probably, I mean, personally, I had more success personally by myself sitting in my dining room with my laptop, never left my house for an entire year. And in that year, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was just ridiculous how many leads came in. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of leads. I spent very little money, by the way, too, very little money. Oh, yeah. And so what's going on, man, with the world of marketing, and why is this happening? And can we ever get back to that old world in any way, do you think?
Well, I think, yeah. So there's a lot within that question, right? There has been a lot of changes. Honestly, I think they've been a little long overdue. You know, you're only going to continue seeing more and more regulations coming down on whether that's social media platforms, just online in general, the internet in general. You're seeing it happen, not necessarily in America, but you see it in with the GDPR and all of that in Europe. And so, privacy concerns, data management, all of that stuff, just continues to become topic of conversation. And the more that happens, the more changes that need to take place. And even back in 2020, before iOS 14 and all of these changes that are probably more known and more public, it was a whole different world, because they were able to track, the platforms themselves were able to get information and be able to work with other apps or platforms to gather data and understand what people were doing, so that they could show them more relevant ads, right? Like, that's really at the end of the day what they want. They want you to stay on their platforms, and the only way they can do that is to show you stuff you want to see. And
Oh, is
obviously,
it basically just the regulation? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I mean, is it basically the regulations that stopped the targeting? Because that's what I think that needs to come back in some way. Maybe it'll never come back, but I like being targeted, right? I don't care.
Yep.
I mean, if I like eating pizza, I want to see ads of pizza, man. I mean, just give me what I want. Like, what's the problem? Like, why did they change that? And what was the issue of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you had the iOS 14 is the most well-known part of this, which was basically Apple saying, we're going to have people opt into being tracked as opposed to not. And that's whenever a lot of things changed. You saw, targeting and the data that Facebook could actually pull really it hit it hard. And we saw that as well. And, while you can still target people within certain demographics, certain locations, it's still extremely powerful. But you have to think a little bit more about the messaging, the copy, the content. And this was what I've been saying, for years before this started happening. And our team is kind of really, by the time this stuff, the iOS 14 happened and all of that, we had already been talking about this for a couple of years about, regulations at some point are going to happen. They're going to start making it tougher to collect data, share information, all that type stuff. And it's just nature of what it's going to be. And, I think that the marketing, and especially digital and social media management, social media marketing, and all of that was kind of the shiny new object. And it gave people opportunities to hop into that space and go out and charge a business down the street $500. I'll run some ads for you. And it was pretty simple. You could put up an ad and the algorithm pretty much did whatever it needed to do in order to get those results. Now it's just not as easy whenever it comes to the algorithm being able to take over. You have to really understand the analytics, the data, how to do proper testing. That's the biggest thing now that you really have to understand, is how do we test more efficiently, so then we can scale without potentially wasting ad spend and all of that. But, I don't know if the targeting and the data, the analytics side is ever going to come back to what it was. But I do think that it presents an opportunity for the people that really have been focused on marketing and advertising a little bit more thoroughly with the right strategy and right execution. I think it allows them an opportunity to really rise to the top. And that's what I always talked about with the team, is that eventually the door will open, and businesses like ours that are committed to growing and being set up for short-term and long-term success by actually building a brand, as opposed to just trying to hack or follow the most recent algorithm tactic or hack, are going to win. And so, it's all about making sure that you're prepared for these things. And yeah, it's probably going to continue to happen. But that doesn't mean that this stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, because you took a negative and you turned it into a positive. And by the way, it probably got rid of a lot of marketers that were just hacks themselves. Marketers that really they didn't want to spend the time, they didn't want to invest themselves into that brand and create something that was valuable, versus just providing with them with a list of names and numbers. So hey, look, man, I'm curious. I always ask this question on my podcast, but I'm just curious, like, how were you raised? Were you raised rich or poor or middle class? And what did your parents do?
Great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. So obviously I don't have prepared answers, but I was raised middle class. By no means was I rich or my parents rich. We were in a good neighborhood, growing up, had a good school system. And so it was, I kind of got the opportunity because of that, and the people I've got to hang out with and be part of on teams growing up, to see a lot of different things and expand my thought, my awareness of the world. And it wasn't, so I had the opportunity to hang out with a lot of different friends all across the state, or really the city of Greenville, South Carolina at that time. And ultimately, we did have a little bit more of a tougher upbringing where, we battled, I say we, more the immediate family, grew up with a lot of depression and anxiety with our parents. And so I got to see that side as well. And that has really opened my eyes up to more of the mental side of things, which I think has helped through my entrepreneurship journey. And as we continue to grow and understand that everything's not going to be handed to you, it's going to be tough. But looking back on the upbringing and kind of going through that was really what has given me the opportunity to know that I can conquer it, handle it, and got to see both my parents do it, and that's been huge.
Thank you for watching our short clips on Alonzo Academy. If you'd like to watch the next short clip, click here. If you'd like to watch the entire podcast, click here.